Joel is a carpenter CEO. He's an amazing dude. I think most people can't imagine running a $20 million company. He's somebody that in 2 years' time, not once, not twice, but 3 times, he's taken a $10, $20 million outfit and scaled it to over $100 million. Don't tell him, but I think I'm going to beat him. I think we're going to pass him by next year. But Joel's incredible. I love this conversation. One of the best parts of doing this podcast, which part of me still thinks is silly, is I get to know my relationships at an even deeper level, which is something I pride myself on doing. But it was just fun to hang out with Joel. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Yeah, Joel, first of all, appreciate you being here. I got a quick, informal agenda. So I'd love to cover your build story. We'll talk leadership from your eyes, your advice to the young up-and-comers. I'd love to explore, working with the smaller family guys versus the big PEs, which you're now with. And then the most interesting thing for me is your take on subs versus general. So I've been blessed to know you. I think you're one of the smartest dudes, one of the most qualified leaders I've come in contact with. I think your story is super cool. So I'm not going to do it any disservice, and I'm just going to launch in and be like, hey, tell me, Joel, how you came to be a very, very proven and successful CEO. I think you've got multiple 7-8 figure businesses that you've built. So yeah, just tell the story. How did you come to construction?
Well, it was pretty simple. In high school, I was working playground construction and then working as a carpenter for my father-in-law. And I loved building stuff, but I would work in the summers in between college and high school, so it was hot. Or I'd work over Christmas break and it was cold. And we were doing custom homes back then. So every board I picked up was heavy. So it was hard work and I loved being part of it, but I didn't want to do that physical work forever. So there wasn't as many construction management type degrees out there. So I went and got a degree in architecture, and with the intent of always going into construction management or being part of building something and not necessarily designing it. But I also kind of love the technical engineering side. So my architecture degree was also a fifth year options of structure. So I could have been licensed as an architect or a structural engineer, but I never went down that path. And then got into construction management. I started with a small firm, and it was kind of interesting. And then it grew quickly. So right when I was 25 years old, I was always at the pointy end. But yet it was never my business, but I was always at the very pointy end. So I got to see the right way, the wrong way. And as I moved through my career, I never really had a resume unless it was from marketing for the company. It was always a move. I knew someone. And so after starting with the first company, I was there 20 years. We went from a couple million to probably 50 or so. That's back then. And I was a director of my 20s just because, I was the first one around. And this guy was a fantastic communicator, knew what he wanted from his business. And then, I moved on to Madison Construction and came on as VP of Pre-Con, worked my way up to president, led them from what I don't remember now, maybe 30 million up to over 150 million in revenues. And then through that, I did some JVs with an MBE firm called Apex. They courted me for a while, ended up going over there, kind of did the same thing, took it from about 18 million to approaching 100. And then, here I am. They sought me out. I didn't even know. Actually, it was you were the first person that kind of let me know. I'm like, I didn't even know my resume was reading that way. And then you kind of pointed that out to me. And, but it was around the same time I was coming here, and private equity firm was, searching out someone to turn around the company and take it to, a whole new level. And, kind of follow up on 2 questions, how I got here. And then And then on the sub side, all this time it was all on the GC side, working. A lot of the people, the firms that I owned were or that I was at, the owners of the firm were and executives were from big companies like Walsh, and I was always kind of moving from a small to a medium or medium to small, and I just for me that was just a recipe where you could really make a difference. And when they reached out to me for this job, I said, well, why would I want to leave a GC and go be a subcontractor? And they said,
Real quick, where are you today? You're at Complex Structures Group, right?
yeah. So today I'm at Complex Structures Group, been here about a year. We did a rebranding about when I came on and changed our name from Chicago Steel to Chicago Structures Group, the same CSG, but we also do precast erection. We do a little bit of mist metals, and we work. We're looking at stuff from South Dakota to Pennsylvania. We just bid some aviation in Florida, so we're all over. So Chicago Steel the name didn't really fit with the new direction of the business. So we changed it to Complex Structures Group, and it's really the more complex it is, the better we are at it. And
Sorry, I don't want to.
Go
I'm
ahead.
just because there's a lot of things that I could read into that the people that don't know you are not gonna follow along. So, Chicago Steel, primary is steel erection, right? Which is like you build big buildings.
Yeah. So if there's a high rise going on in Chicago, we're one of maybe two from Chicago that could do it. There's some that can do big buildings, but not necessarily the complexity of a high rise. And so that is we strictly sell, for the most part, erection of big steel structures. You won't see us working on a gas station, but if it's big, like we're doing the stadium at Northwestern right now as we speak, we're doing the precast bowl and the steel erection. So that is a big, complicated job.
That's for Turner, right?
Turner Walsh JV.
Oh, Turner Walsh. Yeah, we're going to have to talk about JVs too, because us little guys don't understand. Oh, and then one thing I want to back up. So I want to recount your history. So you were a carpenter for your father-in-law, and then you got your degree because you didn't want to be working outside for the rest of your life. And then you never used that degree. So you get a degree in architecture. And then you said your first company, I didn't catch the name. Where was the first company?
The first company was called New England Builders. And so they were a GC that was becoming a home builder. And that was kind of in the big swing in 90s when home subdivisions were exploding. And we kind of had a little bit of a niche that helped us launch at New England. We were doing town centers. We did a town center in Downers Grove, Bartlett. We did the marina revitalization in downtown in Kenosha. And, we were really grabbing a lot of headlines. And I think there was a time like Town and Country or Cambridge or something like that even tried to buy us because we were getting these RFPs and winning these from the villages. And so, we had a nice rise, in the 90s into the 2000s, kind of up until the recession. And then and so that was like a more of a developer / builder. We were really our own client. And a lot of the bigger GCs who kind of wanted to do some for sale product would come to us and say, hey, how about we JV on a mid rise or a bigger project? And we'd kind of say, well, we're happy doing that ourselves, but we'd be happy to GC that for you. So we didn't do too many partnerships there. But when I went to Madison, we started doing, some of that. They were in the pure GC world. The owner had a dream of being a developer, but we were a GC first. And, that was kind of where I guess I got introduced to, doing JVs.
And then I'm sorry, I'm going to we'll keep moving. I know you're a fast mover. I'm a fast mover, but I got to slow it down. I have to slow it down.
No problem.
No, it's good. I mean, and I think the thing that I didn't fairly say in the beginning, like, I think your success is pretty incredible, and I don't think you give yourself enough credit still to this day. Like, what you're able to accomplish on repeat is phenomenal. But and I think so. Part of our audience is going to be the carpenter, right? The guy that's banging nails that doesn't want to bang nails all day. It's like, how do you get out of that, and how do you end up? How does that 18-year-old, that 16-year-old says they want to get into trades? How do they go to the school of Joel Spalding and sit in your seat someday? So that's the picture I'm trying to paint. But so you came first company, New England Builders, and you the project manager, or you went straight? So you, yeah,
Yeah. It was like, I guess it would be kind of like an entry, like a project engineer, but it went project engineer, project manager, like senior PM, vice president, director. That was really quick. The company was growing. I was working 6 days a week all the time. I was into my career. I loved it. And so I had kind of a quick rise there and learned a lot. I was able to really work directly for the owner, who was a pretty brilliant guy. And so, I mean, I literally got to apprentice under him, for 20 years. And the biggest thing I always tell people, and I tell this to my teams now when I'm estimating for sales, whenever something goes wrong, I always say that is an opportunity. When someone quits and leaves you hanging and everyone's flipping out, like, what are we going to do? I'm like, this is an opportunity. As a boss, it's an opportunity to upgrade. Not when one comes around, I never pass on it ever. Like,
yeah,
and so I think that was probably the biggest thing. And even if it was over your head, and I've made a lot of mistakes as a boss, let's say, or executive, because someone underneath me, they want it. They want the opportunity. And one of my weaknesses, I would say, is I'll give them so much rope.
yeah,
And because I see myself and I'm like, they're just going to find a way. This person's sharp. They're hungry. They want it. But I'm better at it now than I used to be, because now I'll make sure I don't create an opportunity or a situation for them to fail. And so, and that's kind of what I would encourage anyone. If you don't go for it, your chances are zero. And so, you got to be brave. You got to be hungry, and it doesn't come to you. And so I think I took that work ethic from the field and kind of applied it to the office. I outworked everyone. I mean, I got a very, very, very strong work ethic from my father-in-law. I mean, I remember one summer in between college, I think I worked every day and like 50% of the nights going to side jobs. I love the money. Like those were working for cash at night on weekends. And construction, if you hustle like that, for a kid in college, I was making a lot of money. Came out of school not owing a penny, and I actually had some in my pocket. And so I just took that work ethic, and I kept it rolling. But you got to love it, or you burn out, right? And so I would say, as long as you love it and want it, I would tell a young person, just look for those opportunities. They're everywhere, but don't pass on them. None of them are either. Nothing worth chasing is going to be easy.
And for you working at New England, so you go PEP. Do you have any? I know it's probably eons ago. I'm not to age you, but PEPM, senior PM, VP director, and then you get to the C-suite. But do you have any idea you come in as a project engineer? How? Because I was just doing this with Kyle too. Like, what is that, a 5-year window, or like are you graduating the ranks in 3 years? Like, I know you're an incredible person, but just like, I'm sure you're on the fast track.
Yeah, it moved quick because we were literally building homes. And as a carpenter, I was technically pretty advanced compared to anyone just coming out of school with a construction management degree. So I was able to move through that quickly. And it was also a company that was learning to put policies in place. We went from 3 people to like 70 or 80 in a couple of years. And so, I was also tasked with helping put policies in place, and I just did my best, and that owner really believed in me as well. And so he gave me a lot of rope, and stood by me when I screwed up, big or small. But you learn from those.
Your total tenure at that company, and I would just want to talk about your transitions, because I think the transitions are monumental. For so you're there, if you had to guess, 10 years, 5 years by the time, and you
Oh no, it's almost 20.
Okay, so you're there. So you really cut your teeth here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And, it wasn't really, he didn't set it up for succession because it morphed into being a developer first and kind of a builder second. So once he quit developing, the opportunities, it wasn't really set up to sell because the value was in the projects more than the body of work because of this clients were himself, not like a GC where if you got a group together and you got a book of clients, it's a little different. So
And was that your father-in-law, or what was your father-in-law's company? Was New
no,
England
my
Builders?
father-in-law was a carpentry contractor that I worked
Okay,
for going to college. I wanted more
got it.
than looking back on it, maybe not. Like I said, I'm enjoying being on the sub side, but um, this is that he was a different kind of sub then. It was a little more residential, and he
Yep.
didn't have visions of something. I just wanted more
And
than
then
what he had
so
at the time.
so New England Builders, he kind of stops developing, so the company stops. So that is what prompted you to look. That's you went looking to Madison, or Madison came to you.
Yeah, I knew the people there,
Okay.
um, and they just said, "Hey," I said, "I've been here a long time with this guy. I'm helping kind of wind things down." And they said, "Hey, when you're ready, we'll take you." So I never had a resume or anything. They just knew me, and so I went over there.
And then so you take that company from 30, and the funny part about this is it's like it was kind of as we were coming up to as a sub, and I was like, man, these Madison guys, like, they're everywhere, they're getting a bunch of, like, it was like we got to kind of ride that roller coaster. But I never thought, like, I wasn't mature enough to realize, like, oh, I wonder, like, I could have probably seen the moment you got there, like it probably was a one for one, they started getting bigger. But that was short, right? 30 to 150 million. And how long would you say?
It was fast, like probably 2 or 3 years. Yeah, yeah. It was. I came on as the VP of pre-con. Like I said, I left as president.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, no, I got on a roll there very, very fast.
And then Apex
Um,
is coming after you, courts you. I know that we don't have to talk about kind of what happened in Madison. It was, you didn't want to leave, but you had to leave, and then you just go do it
yeah,
again in another 2 years, because I remember, and that's you blew up Apex from 18 to 100 million. That's really special. You're a guy that can take something and what's quintuple it, five times it in a short amount of time. What's this, obviously fail, like, take the opportunity, seeing everything as an opportunity, but what is the, like, what's the secret sauce? What's the Joel Spalding? What's what? How do you do something like that?
yeah. This one was not as thought through as you might think. It was a lot more. It was a lot more gut. Like they reached out, and I'm always getting solicited. And so finally, there was a month where several kind of reached out. And it, it, at first, I was like, I just ignored them. And then they came at me again. And I finally said, well, why would I want to leave a GC and go to a subcontractor? And at the time, there was a lady who I was talking to. She goes, what? I keep hearing that. Everyone's telling me that. And it was just the opposite. The private equity firm that uh, owns CSG now, they wanted to find someone outside the steel world. And so it was like they were looking for someone outside of it. And I was thinking, why would I go in to be a sub? And the more I looked at it now, it was a steel company that erects and does large work is a high level subcontractor, right? It's a little different than like someone who puts in residential pools or sidewalks,
Or a
for
measly fence
remodels.
contractor?
Yeah, a
Yeah.
measly little $80 million fence contractor.
Not quite 80, but we're coming.
Okay, yeah, right. But you know what I mean. Like it's a company that wanted more and to be excellent, and really, I'd kind of passed, and they came back to me like, "Here's why you need to do it because of the people. They need a leader. This company's been around. It has employees that have been here for over 20 years. many over 15 and another huge chunk over a decade, and they're in desperate need of leadership, and that they can be great. And that was the first time I'd ever felt someone from a private equity company actually cared about the people in it. Everyone else was always a bit of a number. And so that got me really thinking. Um, and then I guess it was kind of more of that, like, wow, new challenge in a new state, in a whole new industry. It was a very scary move in a way, but I was never not confident. And I think what I thought is turning out to be right. If you focus on just kind of maybe one thing and doing it excellent, I actually think it's more fulfilling and easier than, the GC part is way more complicated. And to focus on one thing and be great at it. I mean, you think of your business, let's say you're in 15 states. Truly, you might only have a couple competitors in each state. If you're a GC, you got hundreds. And especially because you're already doing it at a pretty high level and a pretty large size. And so your competition's less. And I think it like can help narrow down, especially if you're looking to do growth 3, 4, 5, 10, 10 times even your growth quickly. I think to narrow it down and be excellent at it, is going to be, I think, more fulfilling and more attainable. And I don't think I think I was right about that. I'm seeing it now. It's coming quick, and we are evolving as a company so quickly, from just the level that we operate at. First I kind of focused on the weak link. Financial, our reporting was terrible. Sales was non-existent. Production, we were under the gun. We had work coming that we didn't have manned up. You chase around the weak links, stabilized everything. And then when we really started focusing on what we want to be, it was so much easier to come up with the vision and start to implement that, because without that vision, you don't know where you're going. And so how do you build a plan without the vision if you don't know where you're going? And I think that was just easier on the subcontractor level. And I also think that when you do it at such a high level, I think it's way more noticed. It's way more felt. The team, it means more to the team than I just ever saw on the GC side.
And would it be fair to say, and I think you said this to me, but like it was hard to make the bridge, but now that you made the bridge, you wouldn't want to go back. Like you're on subside to stay.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm not going back.
So then let's talk about, let's say, it's, I don't want to say it's easy, but so you're working at Apex, you're on your second flip from 18 to 100, and you're getting poached by the PE guys. PE's uncertain, but the big thing is like going to the sub side, like talking to, because I won its fence, so I've got a little bit of a different issue, but for, from the juniors up to the PMs, directors, VP, like it's very much like a your kind of default answer is like, why would I leave GC to go to the sub side? So the summary is like, I'm interpreting a little bit, but like you get to specialize, you get to focus, you get to build an easier, more I want to say easier, like a better path to growth. And I would suspect that going on the sub side, your decisions, I'm putting words in your mouth, but tell me if this is accurate or not. But like the decisions a VP makes or a project executive makes are going to affect one job at one company. Like when they come to the subs, like it's you get to be a part of the entire organization. Is that fair to say? Is that like, I mean, obviously when you're at the senior level, you're doing that all across the board. But as far as like the project managers and the engineers that are, I don't know. So speak to that. If I'm totally off base, you don't have to go with me. Say it your way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I think what you're asking is, so most of the decisions that I'm not an expert in steel erection. Most of the decisions that I'm making on a daily basis is making decisions on what this company, constant analyzing what this company needs from its leader to implement the vision. So first thing, I had to create a vision, right? And then I needed to kind of assess the team here who's capable, the leadership team of helping me lead the company to that. And so the reason I don't have to really know a lot about steel and talk about welding and legume bolts and cranes and those kind of things is because I have some of the best in the business here. Because two of the guys on my leadership team have been here almost 25 years, so they're very, very good. But also, what is attractive for them is they've got all that technical experience, and they get to be part of the very sharp end of growing it. And they are also in the right part of their career for doing that. And some people we had to go from outside the business to find that. And so, another part of it is when I left Madison, there was about 18 people who followed me. And then when I left Apex, there's less, but there's quite a few here now that have been at all three companies with me. And so that shows you that the talent is talent. And someone who is hungry and talented and works hard can also bridge the gap, right? And it gets down to the proper leadership and people that want to be led, and they're in the middle of being leaders themselves. And so I think that's part of the recipe, and the culture here now is sprinkled some of that enthusiasm, bravery, talent in with some people who are used to doing something the same old way for 20 years, even though it wasn't taking them too far, but just kind of creating something solid. Uh, like that is I think was part of the key here. I mean, is that what you're asking? Like
Yeah. No.
I
Yeah. I
love a
mean,
technical background versus a business. I mean, you look at Elon Musk. He would take an engineer to help run his company before he would take a Harvard CFO, right? And so having people who have been in there, but now they've also gained common sense and also how to treat people, and they've worked their way to a VP. Both my president here and the VP, were iron workers for years as they came through. And so that's a great technical background. Now they're on a daily basis, they still do make decisions related to steel, but it's a lot higher level now.
sure. And I think I think it was a bad question, but for the project manager, let's say he's working at one of these big GCs that's getting solicited by a sub, what would you tell them? And they think to themselves, oh.
Oh, I tell them, I know exactly what I tell them because there's some here that came from Apex and they were like, are you kidding me? When I told them when I was leaving, they're like, well, why? But I didn't, now I got I think the experience and it worked to back it up. And that is to do one thing great. Okay. Now you're at the GC and you got to make sure the landscaper does this and then the asphalt guy does that. And you're starting to kind of manage a process. You're not actually doing, like, you can actually do something and just do it a little more excellent. And on the GC side, they're running around getting people paid. And then, they got to put this together and then they got to hold these meetings here. I can tell you that very talented PMs that came here with me. And after being at a couple companies, they're so fulfilled here because they feel like they're actually building something again, and they're doing it at such a high level. And for them, it's even easier than it was to excel at GC because there's just so many roadblocks. Now there's just so many less roadblocks. So they can just focus on being great and not focus on moving around the roadblocks.
And would it be your projection that you're the norm, not the exception? I mean, I think the thing that we all have to disqualify is you go work for a good leader anywhere, you're going to have a good time, you're going to be fulfilled. But I mean, do you think that this is notwithstanding working for a bad sub, but you think in general, like your trend, it's uh, a PM can expect more fulfillment, more hands-on, more capability to affect the fight in a productive way for us? Like, do you think that's a general trend, or do you think you're in the exception? Like, do you think that's a a replicable thing, or are you unique? I think if I was a PM listening to this, I'm like, Joel's in a unique situation. I don't know about these subs.
It might be unique because if the people who came here didn't trust me because I'd been with them before, I would never lead them wrong. I would never take them from a place where they were successful and put that at risk for them in their careers. So there was a level of trust there when I was telling them why. Yeah, it might. We could be the exception, but every single one of them, now that they've been here, would say the same thing. So now, when I'm starting to talk to someone from outside the steel world to come here because of word of mouth that they're excellent or they're like someone who would fit in, all I got to do is have them have lunch with this group, and they'll say why. It's so much more fulfilling. And when you take all that knowledge you learned at the GC level and then bring it to a sub, you're like, I think it really increases your chances of success too, because you know what the GC's thinking and we're working for them. You can help manage up to the GC and help make their life easier. So therefore you can also help the sub be more successful. So like that technical part of it and understanding of the other side, I think just gives you just a leg up aside from just coming up. It's tough to get that technical background. You don't, if you don't come through it and do a little bit of, spend time in the field on the steel side, but they're adapting quickly, like in months. It's not going to take like 10 years.
You went from 30 to 150 at Madison, 18 to somewhere close to 100. And are we allowed to talk about your goals here at Complex Structures Group?
Yeah. I'm proud of them.
Yeah.
That saying, you got to say something 7 times before people believe you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So these guys did, 28 million ish, give or take a million before I came here. This year, I've been here 11 months, and this year we are on track to do about 115 million.
Hmm.
And already starting, we're working on work for 26. I think we're going to be talking about 175, maybe 175 plus for 26. Quite a jump.
Yeah, I'm doing it. I'm
Yeah.
gonna put this out in the ether. You went from getting semi-harassed from recruiters to
Yeah.
like everybody's gonna be beating your door down.
Yeah, don't do that. My board will be chasing me down.
Yeah, I was gonna say I can't remember their names when I met with them, but they're not paying you enough. I don't care what it is. That's amazing, dude. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
that's
Nick and
why.
Russ. Nick and Russ were
Yeah,
the
Nick
the
and
guys
Russ.
who headed up. They're good
Yeah,
guys.
tell them I'm still waiting to hear about Apollo. That's awesome, man. That's so cool. There's so many. So I asked a question earlier and I didn't ask it the right way, but give. I think there's going to be some guys that are struggling to run their $5 to $10 million shop. There's going to be a varying level of projects execs. Like how does a guy do that? Because like what you're talking about, I did it the wrong way, but like it seems unfeasible to step into a $30 million company that's struggling for years and years and years, and one guy just comes in and can't do math. What's that? Almost 3-4 times. Like,
Yeah, I think the small guy thinks too small. And
it's
right,
all
I can
mindset.
say, yeah, I'm going to say it's a family friend of mine. Here's an example. A family friend has a cabinet company, and because he's obsessed with the details, like if you bought a cabinet from him, he makes custom cabinets. They're perfect, right? But it's always going to be late because he does everything himself, right? And he can never do more than like he's his own roadblock. And sometimes in a small company, everyone thinks I got to save money, just do everything myself and just work my fingers to the bone. When you have to think bigger if you want to be bigger, and you have to find people that you trust, and you have to pay them more than you want to, especially when you're small, but you can't get there without it. So people get caught up in it and say, well, I can't have that guy helping me sand cabinets because he wants $40 an hour or whatever. And I could do that myself if I just stay Saturday and do it and I'll make this more. And then, but they get caught in that mentality. And if you start thinking about your problems and then say, you know what, if I'm going way bigger, you start to see a solution, and you can start to see your way to a vision. And one book that both of you and I share is that 10x is easier than 2x. Like that is a real way of thinking, whether you've read it and you call it that, or that's your philosophy for growing something. If you're thinking small, and back to what I said about having to say it 7 times. So when I said, "Hey, yeah, we're gonna go over 100 million in the next year," everyone here, my whole leadership team was like, they would look at each other. I
Yeah.
hear now that they were like sitting back behind me, going, "There's no way!" Like, you know what I mean?
Oh, it's
And so
so
I kept,
funny.
I kept, I kept
It's so
saying it, and I
relatable.
kept saying it, and I don't even think Nick and Russ, the board, like I don't even think they believed it, but I was just like, yeah. And now I'm like, and now I'm changing it, and so then it went to 115, right? And then they're like, well, wait a minute, 115. What happened to 100? And now it's taken a long time, but they're like, oh, okay, you can see it now. Of course, it scared them because they didn't know how to do it, or else they would have been doing it already. Like, well, we're going to do it, but we got to put some things in place, and so you have to help them, show them the way. And of course, having capital and experience and a team behind it, and the right people in the right places. There's much more to it than just wanting to do it right. And but I would say that's the one big thing. Think a little bit bigger, and you'll see the answer to your problems.
Yeah, man, there's so much I want to like add to that, but this is not about me. It's actually really affirming for me though when you say that, because I've done the same thing. I mean, we've not done the same thing. Where I come from a 4 million to a $30 million fence company, to like, we've done it really fast, not nearly what you've done, but I I had a goal. It's just funny when you say move the goal, right? I had a low goal of 20 million when I first started, and I wanted to reach to 100. I I've been telling them, like, we're budgeted at, I think we're going to do eight. It is 80. Yeah, we're going to sell eight, or I think my sales, we do sales and bookings, or sales and revenue are different for us. So we'll do revenue at 45. We got to book 60. And I told her so my sales girl, I said, if you don't do 80, it's embarrassing. And you can get 150, and you need to be preparing for 250 in the following year. Cause I know the market will bear it, and I know you can do it. And like, I myself have not been being as vocal about it because I'm like shy, but I know, and I'm saying it here out loud, and I shouldn't, but I know I can build a $500 million fence company. I absolutely know it can be done, and I've been sheepish. So this is somebody listening should be smart like Joel and just say it out loud. Say it out loud and believe it can be, and not shy away from it. Because I've always been, well, that's a little audacious. Don't want to sound crazy. Like, no, I know it can be done, and we're going to do it. And that's like, I mean, I've always done that at a smaller level, but as always, you've elevated my game. It's just, yeah, it's fun to be talking with you. So thanks for coming. But that's super true. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I love what you just said. It's so true. So at the last board meeting, that's when I introduced the 150, 175, and they're like, well, because I'm well aware of what I say, and if I go out and say that, especially in front of a board with my whole leadership team sitting there, and say we're doing 115, and then we're going to do 175. It's like,
It's real.
yeah, and and I don't want this attitude. Well, we shot for 175 and we hit 155. That's okay. It's like, no, that we're planning for that, and here's the plan. And I think that was part of it, was showing everyone the plan. It took a long time to develop the details of that plan, and it had to be done on the financial side, the sales side, the production side, and we call it logistics, which is our shop, which supports all the erection and the equipment, our fleet of vehicles. We're building a new office. We should start construction 4 or 6 weeks. Like all these things that you got to focus on at the same time to deliver that kind of growth. Like you just say it outside, and you don't stop. You just keep going because, oh, I've said it out loud. Now I got to go. And so I love that about you too. And I've heard you say that, and I know you absolutely um, can do it. It's really um, it's when I was a project manager, some people would say like, "Wow, your jobs are always on time. You get the easy ones." And I would be like, and I was like, "No, no, no." I said, "You know
From
why
my
they're on
mother
time?
shop.
Because it's a decision, right?" And I remember listening to like Mike Tyson talk once, as silly as he may be, he goes, "Hey, I just made a decision to be champion. I dress like one, I act like one, I work like one. I had it in my head, I'm gonna be one." And like, that's part of it. And so, that's kind of what I try to mentor everyone that works for me, all levels, from the president down to the iron worker.
Man, that's so rich. I don't want to like expound on it, but like I think I've as a gregarious, higher reach, overachiever, I might call myself a 10 times. It was so fun when you picked that up. It's like, oh, yeah, he's read the book. I've read the book. Like we know, like a 10 timer knows a 10 timer. And we've been using the term at our, because my president's the same way. Like, I think you met him, but like Steven is like, and he's a little bit of a machine. Like he forgets that he has to at least pretend to care. Cause he's like, and we've been like, he hates the 9 to 5 mentality. Like, and we're using this like 9 to 9 mentality. It's like, it's a mentality. It's not that we want all of your time, but it's like when the rubber meets the road, it's like, are you willing to do whatever the frick it takes to get whatever it is done that needs to be done, that 9 to 9er? But like talking to you, I realized like, man, I've been like shying away from that. And I'm a big, like, don't talk about it, be about it. Right. Like I get hit up all the time. Like, pay us to write an article about you. And I'm like, no, fuck you. Like, you can write an article. I'm not going to pay for you to write about me. Like, I'm going to do something that's worth being written about. And I always want to be like, I want to be the guy that did something worth writing about, didn't talk about it. And so I've actually made a mistake that you've now caught me on. It's like, instead of being out there telling everybody, except for my close friends like you, that I'm going to build a $500 million fence company, like I'm going to go own that because it's going to happen. I mean, it's not, and I wasn't set on it until like this very moment. I'm like, yeah, no, it can't be done. So I'm going to go do it. So I just really appreciate you saying that. And I think at the lower level for people that are like, particularly the guys that are running the one-man shop that doesn't know how to hire the next guy. Like, I think what you said was so wisdom is like, it's a mindset, and like the scarcity mindset that I have to do everything. Like I remember when I used to agonize over $1,000 decisions, right? Like, at one point it was $100 decisions, and you can't be a billionaire if you're thinking about hundreds of dollars. You can't, like, and it's like, you gotta like increase your decision thinking. And I don't want to go from hundreds to billions, but like, my dad's a classic example. He's a self-made millionaire, and the only thing that prevented him from being 5 times as wealthy as he was is he never went to think bigger. Like, he never thought that he would acquire the wealth that he did. So every decision that he made was in a very, very small minded. So to all the owners and the solopreneurs out there, I would just listen to what Joel said and like increase the decision making like capacity. It should be a bigger number. That's not very easy to apply without a little more mentorship, but it's everything. I think it's everything. What you just said is like, I asked you, how do you take a $20 million company to 100? And you simply said, like, you get a better mindset.
Yeah, I mean, you make a decision.
Is that fair? Like,
and then,
right? More.
You just like look what's in the way, and you start solving that with your team. And if there's people on your team that can't help you get there, you don't have your right team isn't full yet. And then they'll be adding people to that team. And then once you get a nucleus of a team, you got to be extremely careful adding to that. And I know you were, because we talked about this. You were always very concerned about adding, at a high level, and because you got to be careful about that culture. It gets finicky, and I worry about that right now. It's something I obsess over. Anyone that we add here over a project manager, I want to meet myself, because now we are so good and so strong, and the team is rolling together. Like, one person can upset that apple cart and make it tough. Like, there's such an excitement there. And that was one of the things I said my first day here. I didn't know I was going to have to come in and make a speech. They had the whole company here. I was like, well, all I can tell you is someday in the near, it's going to get a little harder now in the short term. In the long term, somewhere 6 months to a year down the road, it's going to get easier. You're going to feel how good you are. And once everyone in the company is rowing in the same direction, you'll just feel like we just grabbed another gear. And all of a sudden, people are kind of strutting in the halls, right? And the teams are so strong, there isn't anything they can solve together. We are just like, we're just a month or two away from that. Like, each division now has become so powerful and so strong together as a group. that's happening. And it takes a lot of a lot of you got to take a lot of lumps, I think, to this wasn't natural for me. I didn't just I wasn't born knowing how to do any of this, and some of it takes longer. I learned a lot the hard way, obviously, as we all do. But I mean, there's a lot of little secrets to the whole thing. But the biggest thing is just believing in it, having that vision, and making that decision.
Mm. So rich. Okay, so we only have 30 minutes left, and I got to get to leadership. So I'm going to bounce this over to leadership. I've got my leadership questions that I hit everybody with that is a leader. So can you define it? What is good leadership if you had to give me a definition?
First and foremost, it's very hard. It takes experience. You don't always get it right. To try to put it into a one-liner, I'm not sure I could. I would need to put a little bit more on that, but I will say I think it was. I could say what it's not. And one thing that I love that Steve Jobs said, he's like, "Hey, uh, if you want to make everyone happy, don't be a leader. Go sell ice cream." You know what I mean? So, I mean, that shows you right there. It's hard. There's a lot of hard decisions. There's a lot of pressure that you have to apply. There's a lot of pressure that you have to bear. It's you have to be relentless, and you have to listen. You have to really know and completely evolve your thought on what your company needs from its leader, and it changes month to month. And you have to, and sometimes you got to check your ego, and sometimes you got to use your ego. It's like it's awfully complicated to try to sum that up.
I'm gonna make you come back to me, because you can think about it as long as you want when you come up. And the reason I ask is it's interesting because I think definitions matter, and there's a different project I'm working on which I'd love to get your take on someday. But everybody knows they don't want to be a loser, but very few people can actually define what a loser is, right? Everybody wants to be a winner. How do you define success and all that? So I'd be super interested as what I would consider the best of the best, or at least a top tier dude, is when you sit down and think of what it is to be a leader. I would love that definition whenever it comes to you.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
maybe when we get to the
Could
dirt
you
bike
answer
crash.
that?
But what
You
about
think with a simple?
I can. I'll give. It was when I was in the Marine Corps. I actually, it pisses me off. I wrote an article. It's called for the Gazette, and I was I had time. It's interesting. When I was running my business, I never had time for anything. But in the Marine Corps, it's a government job, so there's gaps where it's very survivable. And I'm talking to you, Dan Larla. Your job's not that hard. Everybody in the military thing. Anyway, I have a bunch of respect for my Marine counterparts, but and let me pause so this doesn't get missed. Anybody willing to die for the country is an amazing human and deserves all the credit in the world. That being said, the dudes that are going to retire on the government dime always give me shit about how I have a cake life over here, and so I just wanted to take that opportunity to let them know that I had more spare time while I was at tank school than I did in business ever. But I wrote for the Gazette, and I'm what is good leadership, right? Is Hitler a good leader? How do you define this as and I don't think anybody really defines it, right? You've got the narcissistic leader, you've got the dictator, you have all these archetypes, and it's what does it look like to me? And I'm not going to define it today because I would bias you. So just after you've thought about it, send it to me. I believe mine's great. I love mine. That's one of the things I would be
But you won't tell me until show me
but,
yours, show me mine, kind of thing. Okay,
yeah, I got to make you think about it. If I give you the answer, there's no journey. And this one's a little easier, but the most important traits, I think you've said a lot of them, but when you think of the traits of a leader, what comes to mind? I'd say no more than 10. 5 to 7 is always a good number, but what are the key ones for you? And maybe you only have 3. You don't have, but what do you think?
I think someone who that's a tough one to narrow it down to 3, but probably one of the biggest ones is someone who really has to absolutely love what they're doing because it's infectious, and that someone that wants to be successful with other people, and meaning they would set their success aside to help kind of bring someone along with them. I mean, I look at the people who have kind of moved with me now on the third company. They all have that. And the thing with it is they're also very secure. They're not insecure, so they're okay with that because they know if they can take a minute and help this person, that's making the company stronger, even if it's like kind of slowing them down for a minute. They're secure enough in what they're doing. And that is huge because when I came here, there was a lot of people that were insecure. And it was just because of the way it was ran before. And those people are now having so much more confidence. And, selflessness, humility, and then just someone who's hungry. Like they want to do it. They love it. And just like, it's so infectious and so great to be part of. When I think of some of the people here that just like are just loving it and they're after it. And I think about success. I don't think about the money. I don't think about the things we would buy with that money. I just think about rewarding that person for everything they've done. And that's probably, we don't get out of bed if we don't get paid, right? But that's the first thing when I think of, when you're seeing red, you don't think of how much money you're making. And when you're excited about something, you don't really think about how much money you're making. But it's like, and doing that as a team is so much more fulfilling than doing it by yourself. And so, like, there's a few right there. And I've just seen that because having the pick when I left Madison, I don't know, 80 people, and when I took over as president, I probably let 20 some people go my first week, and we didn't even feel it. And so those were kind of the best of the best, and then they got to move in. And so I've now seen it work with those traits. I don't sit down and interview someone and say, "Hey, do you know how to write a purchase order? Can you sell this? Like, how do you do that?" Like, I now interview for those trades. And this guy George Randall, who wrote a book on the talent war, he talked about how the Marines are the greatest talent recruiters in the world, and it's never the big, strong, muscle-bound guy or the runner or the great swimmer who can endure the time on the beach, but it's other things. And so that's kind of what I've learned to interview for, or just a couple of those things.
That's great. Okay. And then give me your favorite part. So now we're going to talk to the people that are listening that are clueless of construction. What's your favorite part about our industry, the construction, the trades?
Well, I think the one neat thing about it, and I say I'm so far away from building things, which is kind of why I went into it. I loved building shit, but we're still like, you can still kind of a lot of times look at what a company produces at the end of the day versus, let's say, refrigerator sales or whatever. Just like there's something satisfying about building building things and putting things in place that are going to stand around for a long time. That is pretty neat. But I think the other thing is you also get to see an industry where someone maybe had no skills and they put their head down and they worked hard, and then you see them go from putting in a fence to helping do like things they were never dreamed of. And like I said, uh, my iron workers here at this company are all of our superintendents were iron workers themselves. A couple of my VPs, my executive VP and my president, were all iron workers for a long time. And then now see them helping people and understanding what their iron workers are going through and how the estimator and project manager, they've went through all those trades, and to see how someone that was out there hanging, hanging way out there on a 500-foot building and risking their life and building their job and loving it to come to the business side, that's pretty cool. And someone who's a carpenter, right? And I was just like, well, this would be kind of neat. I could build my own house someday and save 50 grand. I had no idea. I had no idea at the time, what that was doing for me. I just thought I was going to learn in a good trade to make a few bucks.
So awesome. Okay, then what is, if you could change one thing, what would you change about it? If you got to, like, if you were God over the construction industry, got to maybe wave your magic wand and change something, what would you change?
Oh boy, it'd have to be like a bigger for probably safety and the training of safety and talent. I think there's, I think it's a business where you can, be more, I think, so think of someone off the street. They probably think they could grab a paint brush and be a painter. But the construction industry, I think if it was looked at a little bit different from the training to way that it recruits, the tradesmen are so important, right? Like once you kind of become a union guy or whatever, you make more money than a teacher and a cop, but they don't have the same training and recruitment. And so many people out there who could get so much more out of their life with this industry doesn't really understand how to do it and go into it and then navigate through it. So, like like it maybe at the high school level, some people are just like, there's no way I'm going to college. I don't know what to do. Like maybe at that level of vocational type school and education, I would love to see something like that grow, maybe, but I think that's kind of what's neat about it is no different than, like I said, Elon Musk. He's got engineers, guys that were engineers. They just thought they were like geeky dudes going to like, do some cool engineering. And here they are, helping solve super massive and complicated problems and run, a giant business. And I would love to see more of that. I don't think I got quite the skill set that he does. That's for damn sure. But to the how you bring that, I don't know. But wouldn't that be something?
Yeah, that's awesome. Two more leadership questions. So you said what's your book list? If somebody's like, I want to be like Joel, I want to read what Joel read. I've got 10 times as easy than two times. Talent War, which we also bonded over.
I was going to say, Mike Tyson was an interesting guy for me. I listened to a lot of things he had to say, but I think from an organizational point of view, anything related to like the business, the company's operating system, like, you guys are on EOS, the book, the traction and those kind of things. Because if you don't have some organization, how can you, even if you're a 3-person firm, you can pull it off maybe with a little Excel and a few phone calls. But the second you go beyond that, that concept, the way that some of these things talk about how you organize your business, it starts to talk about how you organize your thoughts. So, I think those things, maybe the book, but power versus force, the talent war, traction, 10x is easier than, I mean, a lot of those things are good, but I would say one of my favorite books I've read was this real simple one. It was just called Don't Sweat the Small Things. And I remember that when I sit down and I find myself starting to micromanage like my CFO and said like, well, in that cell, that doesn't reach this. And if I'm doing that, I remind them, you're not doing your job. I'm just supposed to be leading you, not going deep into the weeds. I will from time to time to help you out. But if I got to spend too much time there, I'm not doing what the company needs from its leader, right? If I'm digging down and telling the estimator how to do a takeoff, or I'm telling my safety guy how to be safe at the level we're at, they need to be telling me that, and I need to just be guiding their division, removing roadblocks. And so I also took that to say, it's like I have one key, and really I don't have a house key. I have one for my vehicle, and half the time it just stays in it. And I got the code lock on the door. Like, I don't like to carry keys. If I haven't touched something, I'm not a hoarder in my house. If I haven't touched something in a year, I throw it away. And if something in a business isn't working and we've tried it, I can make a major decision and don't look back. And I attribute all that thought process to don't sweat the small things. And sometimes it's don't focus, don't don't narrow your focus down too far too often. That's you get stuck there. So that if you have it, I would say that would be number one, and then some of the other ones just add some theory to maybe to your concepts of interviewing people and what you're going after, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's great. No, my dad read "Don't Sweat the Small Stuff," and I don't think he put it to practice ever. He sweats all the small stuff. So he treated it like the Bible: read it and ignore it. All right. So you get to pick one of three. So either who's your favorite famous person, who's your least favorite famous person, or tell us a story about the roughest season of Joel's life.
The roughest year of my life, kind of thing, or just business related?
Just well, I use season as like mine was. I mean, I almost bankrupted the company. Like that was brutal. That would have been the roughest, and it wasn't. It doesn't have to be a full year, so I don't. It doesn't have to be business either. It could be personal. Just like tell us about a time like from if I'm the audience listening to you, like you've never had a bad time, which I think is false. I think we are all built in the worst of times. So it's like I don't. If it's too personal, you don't have to answer. You could just talk about famous people too.
No, no, I'm pretty open. Well, I'll start with that one before famous people. I, the famous people. Well, I can go right to the famous person. It's not for me. It's Elon Musk. No, I think he's the smartest man on the planet. I think he just makes a decision and he can do it. Right? The guy didn't know how to build rockets. Now he does. His company, Tesla, is worth more than every American car maker and like Toyota and Nissan together. And he started it all, right? So that's just a decision. He just makes a decision and he can do it. He's got a thought process that is beyond anyone else on the planet. And his vision is so grand that we could all learn from that. And, aside from everything that's going on with him politically, you can't deny those things. Like he had to learn how to make a rocket to decide to make a rocket, and he risked it all. There was a time he said he either had to close Tesla or close that, and he's been through plenty of hard times as well. For myself, I found COVID extremely difficult. I am someone who I love this, right? Like I always like when we met, I wanted to meet in person, right? I love that interaction. When COVID happened, I craved sitting and having a cocktail or a beer and bullshitting over anything with anyone and getting out there and building and maintaining relationships. And then, of course, in the middle of that, I got Bell's palsy, right? I made the jump. This was scary. I made the jump from Madison to Apex in the middle of that with 100% the side of my face paralyzed. I walked into Apex, yeah, 100%. And most people get Bell's palsy and it's gone in about 18 days. Mine took about 7 or 8 months. And it was absolutely, I walked in there to their office like that. And it was such a scary time for me. And at the same time, I didn't really believe in too much communication. I didn't believe you could do great things if the team's not together. And so I had to adjust the way I think about, Zoom, the word Zoom meeting or whatever, teams like that. From in my world, that didn't exist. And I realized looking back, it was a hard time for me to swallow because I realized all the good people I missed out on because they said, hey, I need to work from home a day or two a week. And I missed out on some talented people. And I was almost like, "Man, if I just could have figured it out. Now we know how to do it. And so a lot of that was just a big smack in the face for me to like, I've been thinking about it wrong, check my ego. It's very, very humbling, scary, all those kind of things. And then to come out of it, power with the hammer down felt good, but it was a very difficult kind of a dark period, for a year or so where you're reaching into your repertoire and pulling out everything and putting on the game face and getting through it. But usually what follows a difficult period is like a jump in growth. And so when I see someone that works for me struggling or someone on the personal side, I always tell them, keep your head down because on the other side, you know, one thing you can count on is things change. And, tough times don't last and tough people do and get through it. And, I look back on it now, I needed to go through some of that to be who I am now.
Well, is that a quote by your own? Because I'm putting that in my quote book. Tough times don't last, tough people do.
I'm sure someone said it before me. It's too simple.
I'm keeping it. I'm keeping it. It's going in my book is Joel Spalding. So you got my trademark. This makes me like realize how weak I am relationally. Like I need to make sure that I don't know. I just really enjoy hanging out with you, so I should make it a point to do that. So we're gonna have to buy you a dirt bike and make that happen, Will.
Yeah.
That's what the outcome of today is. I do want to talk about. I want to talk. I think we've only got like probably one or two more questions. So I'd love to just pinpoint your advice to like the guy that's banging nails. Like I want to go like, what would you tell him to do? Like the guy that's banging nails that wants to be a president of a company someday. I'd like to hit that. Some of your hobbies. I know that we share an affinity for winter sports and racing and all. I really, or we talk about like I'm curious if you did a CHRO and where you landed on the talent war outcome because you and I were kind of iterating on that. So
What do you mean, CHO?
So the takeaway, I think we were both kindred spirits. We read the talent. I don't know if you told me to, or we both read it at the same time. I think maybe you told me. I think you did tell me about it. And like just the conventional like HR is sitting over here. It's a HR is like outside of the org rather than saying, hey, people are the most important part of our. Like I think I have restructured and I've got my CHRO, which is Chief Human Resource, with CPO, Chief People Officer, right? I got him sitting right next to the president. Like I think that's its own battle at wages, and I think that's the way it should be. So I was just curious what you ended up doing because I had talked about sharing. We had talked about doing some things because the people make it, right? You could build the sexiest rocket ship you ever dreamed of, but if your people don't even know how to run the horse and buggy they were on, like that was stupid. That was a stupid move. So
Yeah, I mean, we could touch on that. So here, I did recently bring on a new HR person, but I didn't go the route of CHR. And I realized that I had to keep my head down and do the majority of that myself right now. But I needed help with it. And so I've kind of made the leadership team when we're bringing on someone new. I've made it kind of a collaborative effort and decision, and a lot of like big moves and decisions and interviews. I'm doing myself or policies, just because I didn't want to go jumping right to it. But I'm absolutely with you. And in the book, The Talent War, it tells you like that's all you're selling is your talent. Like why do you not go right to that right off the bat? And another reason is I haven't found that person yet that quite thinks the way I need them to. So like that is definitely the direction. I think if you come across someone that fits, you need to grab them right away because that position is so important. So important. Hobbies. You want to talk hobbies? I can talk about that forever. And so I'm a runner. I qualified for Boston. Boston was today. I didn't get to go because about 3 months ago I hurt my hamstring. I'm going to be having surgery on that hamstring somewhere in the next 4 weeks, and I'll be back trying to get to Boston. I've qualified there 3 times, never made it, and I did Ironmans. I love anything on two wheels, but never really did any off road. It's always been road racing, and so I was a national champion 3 or 4 years in a row on road racing in different classes. So I love anything two wheels. Eh,
what's the acronym for that? So you're racing. I just know of it as crotch rockets. You're racing crotch rockets. Is that what that is?
Yeah, they're track rackets. It's called road racing. It's where you put your knee down. It's not drag racing. They're road courses like Road America or
But it doesn't have an acronym. It's not like MXGP or is there? It's just road racing.
Moto America, I guess would be the professional line of that. I was never quite to that. I was an ASRA pro, and I also won like amateur, races. But we race in the big tracks,
Okay.
Daytona, Road America. The last few years, yeah, they were usually dealerships. I raced for KTM for 3-4 years, and I ended up racing and actually started with Harley for Buell. Like the Czech, they were for Buell, which was their sport bike version, but the Czechs came right from Harley. And then I went to KTM, and then I finished. I had 1 year for Ducati Direct. They did this like certain model they had out, and they picked 10 people from the country who weren't like going to be like world champions, and they supported them. I got one of those 10 rides. And then I finished my season racing for Ducati of Indianapolis.
So freaking why? How'd you hang it up? I'm the guy that never let it go. I like kind of parked it for a little while. I mean, I don't road race, but motocross. Why'd you why'd you stop?
As I was getting older, I was still winning races, but like with the equipment, because I had like good sponsors, like every race with new tires, so even just an 8 lap race, new tires, the best equipment, the Ducatis were having traction control, wheeling control. I was a bit ahead of, I was, I was just trying to stay ahead of that. I was getting a little older, and I wouldn't say that I was off a bit, but I had a lot of crashes. And, I've had both my shoulders done, surgery on my thumb, my pinky. And, I was starting to think more and more about crashing. And once you lose a tenth a lap, you go from first to like fifth. You know what I mean? And so, and it was hard to like take a step back and then do it for fun. I'm just now, after being out of it for 10 years, starting to think about that. And I did a little road ride last weekend with some old racer friends of mine. And, I thought about, going back to doing track days and those kind of things. But, I think I'm probably really more interested, maybe, riding off road, kind of like you do. I don't know if you do motocross or enduro, but something along those lines that, you don't have to be full tilt like a road race, and the risk isn't as high. And you could roll around with something in the back of your truck and roll it down the ramp and go hit it for a while. And, I'm very, very interested, as I told you, and maybe making that jump. I got so many hobbies though. Grandkids. I got grandkids. I try to spend time with on the weekends. During the week, I'm down here and I try to immerse myself in the business. And I got a place where I stay here in Indiana, and then I go back and stay up in the western suburbs. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I got a lot going on, but I love anything on two wheels. Like I'm a gearhead at heart.
Well, and I want to be respectful of your time, but how does a guy? Because I mean, freaking like, dude, I hate running. By the way, I hate running. So I admire you, but I can't stand. It's too slow and it hurts, and it. I'm not good at it. I think in high school I ran faster backwards than I did sprint forwards for football or whatever. But that's not like a run once or twice. Like I got a buddy that runs ultras. Like I mean, how do you? I mean, obviously you're a grinder. Talk about balance. Like you said, you haven't even gone. We haven't talked about all your hobbies. How do you prioritize? How do you make time? Like, what's your mindset surrounding like work life balance? You got family, you got competing interests. How do you find balance and still remain passionate about hobbies?
Yeah, it's not easy, but I think I've gotten pretty good at it. Like when I was younger, I would screw it up. I'd wait and add in a little more hobby when I was burnt out. And so now I can kind of tell if I'm getting a little crispy with work and it's just been too intense for too long. I need to go do it. Like I get ahead of it now, and that just comes with experience. But when it comes to working out, you you start to get a little older. You realize you got to stay on top of it if you want to enjoy the hobbies and you want to be good at work. You got to have a fresh mind, and to do that, you got to eliminate stress, and you got to some of my great ideas have been come I'm on the treadmill or running. Um, and then sometimes it's doing a hobby with friends, and you're just bullshitting, you're talking, and you come up with ideas. And so I just make it a priority. My day doesn't start until I've worked out for an hour. I would say 365 days a year, there's maybe 4 or 5 where I don't work out. And that's how I got to start my day. And if I got to get up at 4 to do that, or I got to find a time to squeeze it in at night because life got in the way that morning. And before I go to bed, for me, it's as important as sleep. And I know when I'm not doing it, I don't function as well. As far as the grind, I'm one of those people that always feel like I got to be grinding for something, or else I'm just itching to do something more. I need to be grinding for something physically, and I think that's probably where the running and the Ironmans, and all that came from. You just need to be kind of pushing for something all the time. And I think I added like racing to running just so it gave it a purpose. So, for a marathon or to qualify for Boston or a 5K or whatever it is, that gives a little purpose to it and helps the grind.
Awesome, man. Thanks for coming on. Was there anything you wanted to get into that we didn't get into? I know I told you not to prep, but
Yeah, I would like to take this list of questions and ask them back to you. I would be like, I think if there's people listening, they might know you, but not all of them. And you are an interesting cat for sure. And that's why, like, whenever we get together, we can talk and talk and talk, and eventually, it's got to come to an end. But I'd like to ask a lot of those to you sometime.
Well, we have one option. I don't know what Mick's up to. We can run long, which is totally fine by me, or we set up another one, or it's totally up to. I'm yours, man. You made the time, so I appreciate it. I'd love to hop on again, but I know you're busy. So
yeah, I would love to do it again. And you got your list of questions that I get to ask you. I don't want to give too many new ones because I'd like to see like the mindset. We're similar, but there's going to be some differences. And there might be a few other things that I add to it to go a little deeper in the mind of Kevin.
Yeah, dig in, dude. It's a messy place, but I think it's it's a messy place, but I think it's also like it's a really beautiful place. I've come to really appreciate my mind. I would have told you 3 years ago, I would have had an answer similar to Elon. It's like, you don't want to go up there, like you don't want to. But yeah, that'll be fun. I sincerely though, thanks for making the time. So I'll leave it with this. You owe me an answer to leadership, and as soon as you do, we'll reschedule, and I'll send you the list of questions, and you can make your own. How about that?
That sounds good. Well, hey, thanks, brother. I'll get you that answer, and I look forward to another one.
If y'all aren't impressed by Joel, you should be. I love that dude. So fun to talk leadership and studying how he's done what he's done. What I heard is anybody can do it. I've always believed that. I don't think anybody's smarter than anybody. I don't think anybody's got this special, unique capability. It's just a mindset, right? He uses the word decision. I use the mindset. We talk about it at our company, the 9 to 9er, not the 9 to 5er. It doesn't mean that you don't have work-life balance. That means that at the end of the day, the mission will be accomplished. I think that's just the difference in those that get there and those that don't. And it's super profound. So as always, if we sucked, you know what? If we sucked this time, you suck. I think that was a great pod. I don't care. But put it in the survey. We'll try to do better. We're always trying to do better. And if you liked it, share it, give us a follow, do that whole spiel. Keep building better. Stay curious. And thanks for tuning in. Oh, also, I haven't said this in a while. We're going to have the companies that support us. I don't have any right now, but when I do, they'll be on the website. So check out the website, go support them. There'll be a link. So by supporting them, you're supporting us because they support us. So that's how we maintain a adless podcast, because screw ads. Ads are stupid.